My sons disappeared during a snowstorm. I found them in a TikTok video, emaciated, silent strangers. They ran away from him, my husband. And I didn't even notice that they were afraid to live at home. Hi. My name is Lisa Miller. I live in a split-level ranch about 30 miles outside of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's the kind of place where the wind never stops moving, where the fields stretch out like they're trying to escape the sky. My kids and I, all 7 of them, make do in our noisy little world of mismatched mittens, hand-me-down backpacks, and grocery lists that never quite add up. We're a mess, but we're a mess. January 12th started like any other godforsaken winter day, sky the color of dishwater, cold enough to bite your bones. But by afternoon, the snow was falling sideways, thick and angry, like the sky had turned against us. They said it was the worst storm in 20 years. I should have kept them all home. I should have made soup and played cards and kept everyone locked in, but I let Tyler and Max walk over to the neighbor's farm to help move hay into the barn. It'll take a couple hours tops, Tyler had said, pulling on his too small coat. He was 15 and full of pride. Max trailed behind him, clutching his inhaler and trying to look braver than he felt. He was 12, my baby boy, the soft-hearted one who still asked me to check his closet at night. They were supposed to be back by 6. I had hot cocoa on the stove, popcorn in the microwave, and their favorite fleece blankets in the dryer. By 7, I was calling the neighbor. No answer. By 8, I was putting on my boots. By 9, I was outside with a flashlight, the kind with dying batteries that barely pushed back the dark. The wind howled so loud I couldn't hear my own voice shouting their names, Tyler, Max, over and over until my throat burned. And that's when I saw it. 2 sets of footprints. Side by side, trailing away from the gravel road, across the back field, and straight toward the highway. But then nothing. They just stopped. Like someone had taken an eraser to the world. The snow had covered everything. I dropped to my knees in that field and I screamed. But all that came back to me was wind. The wind didn't let up that night. It clawed at the windows like it wanted inside, rattling the glass so hard I thought something might shatter. I stood by the kitchen sink, arms folded tight against my chest, my forehead pressed to the cold window pane. Outside, everything was white. Like the world had been wiped clean. Like my boys had never existed. I kept checking the clock. 9:36, 10:12, 11:08. Each time, hoping they'd come through the door, cheeks red, boots soaked, sheepish smiles on their faces. Maybe they'd gotten stuck at the neighbor's place, maybe they were helping with the cows, maybe they'd just fallen asleep in the hayloft. That's what I told myself. Over and over. But the truth was already scratching at the back of my mind, like a splinter I couldn't pull out. Around midnight, I remembered something. Tyler had a phone. Not the old prepaid I'd let him use for emergencies, that one was sitting in the junk drawer, dead and useless. No, he had a burner. I wasn't supposed to know, but I'm his mother. You think we don't see these things? I'd caught glimpses of it under his pillow, heard whispers past bedtime. He thought he was clever. He wasn't. I dug out my old contacts and found the number I'd copied down months ago, just in case. My fingers were stiff, shaking as I tapped it in. Ring. Ring. Voicemail. You've reached, his voice, too deep now for 15, trying to sound casual. Leave it. I didn't leave a message. What would I even say? Instead, I kept calling. Once. Twice. 15 times by 2 a.m. I sat curled up in the living room armchair with the phone clutched in my hand like it was a lifeline. Outside, the snow kept falling, swallowing the world inch by inch. I didn't call the police. I know how that sounds. But listen, where I come from, you don't go crying to the sheriff the minute a kid misses curfew. Especially not when you're a single mom with 7 mouths to feed, and especially not when people already think your house is chaos. CPS has been at my door before, once when Max got a bruise at school, once when Tyler skipped 3 days and claimed he was sick. They always smile politely, but I know what they see. Too many kids, too little money, one woman stretched too thin. So no, I didn't call. Not yet. I just sat there, watching the snow pile up against the porch, erasing the world like a slow, suffocating tide. I kept imagining their footprints, how small Max's were, how Tyler's had started to stretch out lately, being buried inch by inch. Like the earth itself was trying to hide them. At some point I must have dozed off, because I woke up just before dawn, my neck stiff, the room still dark. The phone was still in my hand. I tried calling again. Still nothing. The sun rose like a secret, barely peeking through the clouds. Everything outside had turned to porcelain, white, silent, brittle. That morning I walked back out to the field. The same two sets of footprints were there but already fading. The storm had softened their edges, blurred their meaning. I knelt down and pressed my palm into one, right where Max's boot had been. The cold went right through me. Max has asthma. I keep his inhalers in a basket on the kitchen counter, one for school, one for home, one for emergencies. All three were still there. And suddenly it hit me like a punch to the chest. This wasn't just two kids being stupid. This wasn't about staying too long at the neighbors or getting caught in a snowdrift. Something was wrong. Deeply, desperately wrong. But still, I didn't pick up the phone. I made hot tea instead. I sat on the floor with my back against the pantry door. The house was too quiet. No arguing. No footsteps. No video game sounds or microwave popcorn popping. Just me and the ticking of the kitchen clock. At 7:14 a.m. I finally broke. I called the neighbor again. This time she answered. "Helen," I whispered. "Did my boys ever make it to your place yesterday?" She hesitated. I could hear it, the kind of silence that presses down on your lungs. "No, Lisa," she said. "I thought you changed your mind about sending them. We didn't see them at all." And that's when the panic finally bloomed in my chest like a fireball. A sharp, brutal heat. I dropped the phone. My legs didn't work right. I crawled to the couch and sat there just shaking, staring at the closed front door. They hadn't even made it to the farm. Where had they gone? Why would they lie? And why hadn't I noticed the silence sooner? 3 endless, breathless, soul-scraping days since Tyler and Max vanished into the snow. The police were finally involved. I told them everything about the footprints, the phone calls, the storm. They nodded and wrote things down in little notebooks, but their eyes told the truth. Teenage boys go missing all the time. They run away, they act out, they hide. But Max had asthma. And Tyler might have been stubborn, but he wasn't cruel. He wouldn't leave me like that. Not with no note. Not in a blizzard. I hadn't slept. I barely ate. I kept reheating soup no one would eat, folding their laundry just to feel close to them. I found one of Max's socks still warm from the dryer, and I sat on the floor and sobbed into it like it was a life raft. The world outside kept going. I hated that. People were shoveling driveways, returning to school, shopping for groceries like the earth hadn't just tilted sideways. My babies were gone and everything still spun. And then it was a neighbor's daughter. Brielle. 17, always glued to her phone, the kind of girl who wore crop tops in January and rolled her eyes like it was her native language. She showed up on my porch the third morning, cheeks pink, phone in hand. "I didn't want to bother you if it wasn't them," she said. "But I think it is." She shoved her phone at me. A TikTok video was playing. It started with static like the person filming had fumbled the camera. Then the image sharpened. A hallway, tile floors, beige cinderblock walls, and a big metal radiator against the far wall. Sitting on the floor, huddled together under a single oversized coat, were 2 boys. The caption read, "Rescued these kids from the cold. They said they came from Iowa?" The account name was @SnowboundHero25. The video had 143,000 views. My heart stopped. I leaned in. I looked at the taller boy first, skinny face half hidden, hood pulled low. Tyler? Maybe. But the other one, the younger one. I knew those eyes. Big, dark, soft. Max always looked like he was on the verge of telling you a secret. His lips were cracked. His cheeks were red from cold. But it was him. My baby. Sitting on a floor somewhere far from me, wrapped in a stranger's coat. The video was less than 20 seconds long. The man filming spoke once off camera. These kids were out in that snowstorm. Said they'd been walking all night. Gonna get him some hot food. Anybody know where they're from? The comments were a mess. People tagging their friends, joking about baby hobos. Arguing whether it was staged. I couldn't breathe. Where did this come from? I whispered. Brielle pointed. It says it was posted from Des Moines. I sat down right there on the porch steps. Des Moines. That was over 100 miles away. 104 to be exact. I googled it later like a ritual. My boys had somehow traveled across the entire state. In the middle of a historic snowstorm. How? Had someone picked them up? Had they planned this? I took Brielle's phone and clicked through to the man's profile. Just a few videos. Him handing out blankets to homeless people. Him filming himself eating gas station pizza. Nothing sinister. Just some dude who thought he was doing a good deed. The bio said, helping where I can. Des Moines native. DM if needed. I messaged him. My fingers barely worked. I wrote, those boys are mine. Please. I'm their mother. Please tell me where they are. And then I waited. An hour. Then 2. I paced the living room like a caged animal. I made tea and didn't drink it. I watched the video again and again until it burned into my eyes. 3:42 p.m. he finally messaged back. Hey, I just saw this. I think they were named Tyler and Max. They didn't say much. Looked rough. I dropped them off at a shelter downtown. I can get you the address. I burst into tears. Real ugly sobs that shook my whole body. Relief and fear crashing over each other. My babies were alive. Alive. But they were in Des Moines. Alone. In a shelter. With no inhaler, no coat, no one who knew them. What had they told people? Why hadn't they called me? And the bigger question, the one clawing at my throat, what were they running from? Because 100 miles wasn't an accident. That wasn't just a wrong turn in the snow. That was escape. The shelter was tucked behind a chain-link fence near a church with a collapsed steeple. All slush and cigarette butts and the smell of stale coffee. The man from the TikTok, Kevin his name was, met me out front wearing a windbreaker and that awkward expression people wear when they want to help but don't know how. They're inside, he said, eyes shifting. Been here 2 nights. The younger one's got a cough. Staff tried to take him to urgent care but they wouldn't go. Said they were waiting for someone. They were waiting for me. I should have felt grateful. Instead I felt hollow. Like I'd swallowed the snowstorm whole. I didn't go inside right away. I stood out there for a minute, keys tight in my fist, watching people shuffle in and out. A man pushing a shopping cart with broken wheels. A woman dragging a trash bag full of clothes. It was a world I worked so hard to keep my kids out of. And yet here we were. When I finally walked in, I heard Max before I saw him. I'm not going back, he said. His voice cracked, hoarse from cold or crying or both. Then I saw them, huddled together on a cot in the corner, under a pile of donated blankets. Tyler was skeletal. Cheeks sunken, eyes glassy, his jaw tight like he'd swallowed every emotion he couldn't afford to show. Max looked smaller than I remembered, like the world had chewed him up and spit him out. Mom, he said, barely above a whisper. I crossed the room in seconds. I didn't care who was watching. I knelt down and pulled them both into my arms, holding them so tightly I could feel Max's ribs through his sweatshirt. He coughed into my shoulder, and I felt a sob rise in my throat, hot and thick and sharp. They didn't speak much at first. Just cried. Quiet, broken tears. Later, after the nurse checked Max's lungs and gave him a borrowed inhaler, I tried to get answers. I needed something to make sense. But Tyler wouldn't look at me. Not fully. He told the shelter staff our house had burned down. He told Kevin we were dead. And he told the woman who handed out coats that their father, David, had been beating them. My breath caught. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for the smirk, for the admission that it was just a story, just survival talk. But Tyler didn't flinch. He's not our dad, Tyler said, staring at the floor. He's your husband. David. My husband of 2 years. A man I met at church potluck, who came over to help fix the sink and never left. He was strict, raised military, believed in order and chores and consequences. But abusive? I would have known. Wouldn't I? They didn't want to go home, Kevin said quietly, standing beside me. Didn't say much more than that. Just scared kids, ma'am. Real scared. We stayed the night at a motel. I couldn't take them home, not yet. Max was too sick, and Tyler kept flinching every time the heater clicked. I watched them while they slept, still curled together like fox kits in the wild. Every now and then Max whimpered. Tyler would rub his back, then stare at the ceiling with eyes that looked far older than 15. I wanted to ask. I needed to, but something in me was afraid of the answer. The next morning CPS showed up. They'd been alerted by the shelter staff. Standard procedure. A minor shows up claiming abuse? Red flags fly. They interviewed the boys separately, then asked to speak to me in the motel lobby. You didn't report them missing until day 3? The woman asked, pin poised above her clipboard. Her voice was even professional, but her eyes were sharp. Judging. I didn't know what to do. I whispered. I thought, my voice cracked. I thought they were with the neighbors. I was scared. I didn't want to lose them. You understand that we have to open a case, she said. There are concerns about their safety, about the home environment. The home environment. That phrase hung in the air like a verdict. I nodded, silent. Because what could I say? That I missed the signs? That I'd chosen a man who might have been hurting my children under my own roof? That night, Tyler sat at the edge of the motel bed, his face pale and hard. He wouldn't look at me. Wouldn't touch the pizza I'd ordered. Finally, I asked, why, Tyler? Why didn't you tell me? His shoulders stiffened. His voice came out low and full of fire. Because you never would have believed me. That was the moment it all cracked open. The moment the floor dropped from under me. Because somewhere, deep in my gut, I knew he was right. I drove us to Des Moines in the middle of the night with numb hands on the wheel and Max wheezing softly in the back seat. The roads were slick with melting snow, sawdust gathering along the edges like dried tears. I didn't know what I expected when I got there, maybe a clean rescue, a reunion wrapped in warmth and forgiveness. But nothing about this felt clean. At the shelter, they handed Max to a nurse and Tyler to a clipboard. Forms were filled out. Questions were asked, too many too fast. Tyler wouldn't meet my eyes. Max looked like he was fading. And me? I just stood there, watching it all slip through my fingers. Then came the words I've replayed 100 times since. We'll need to involve Child Protective Services. It was like being slapped. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. Because I'd been afraid of this from the moment they disappeared. Because mothers like me don't get second chances. Not in places like this. Not when the words abuse and neglect are floating in the air like poison. They put us in a waiting room. Beige chairs. Fluorescent lights. Max curled up under my coat, his breathing shallow. Tyler sat stiff, like he was still out in the snow. I tried to talk to him, soft, careful. But he shut down. Not angry. Just gone. The CPS worker was a woman named Dana. Early 40s, kind eyes, a tight ponytail. She listened, I'll give her that. I told her everything about the storm, the burner phone, the footprints in the field, the TikTok. I told her how David worked nights, how I thought he was strict but never violent, how I never saw Bruce. She nodded slowly. Sometimes they hide it. Abusers are often charming. They control what people see. I flinched. Because that meant I hadn't seen. Dana asked questions I didn't know how to answer. Did Tyler ever seem afraid of David? Did Max stop eating? Were there any signs of withdrawal, aggression, school issues? Yes. Yes. God help me, yes. I looked down at Max, curled up like a leaf on the chair, and I thought about all the nights he came to me saying he didn't want to go to sleep yet. About how he flinched at loud voices. How Tyler had become quieter over the past year, angrier. How I chalked it all up to puberty, stress, the noise of our big, messy family. I missed it. I missed all of it. Dana cleared her throat. We'll place them with a temporary foster family while we investigate. You'll have supervised visits for now. I almost dropped to my knees. No, I said, the word torn from me like muscle. They're my children. They need their home. They need me. I know this is hard, she said gently. But we have to make sure they're safe. That word again, safe. As if I hadn't tried. As if every damn day wasn't a battle to keep them clothed, fed, warmed together. But I nodded. What else could I do? That night, I went back to the motel room alone. Their coats were still on the bed. Max's inhaler sat on the nightstand. Tyler's shoes were near the door, worn through at the soles. I laid down between all of it and cried until my face ached. The next morning, I got a voicemail from Dana. Lisa, we placed the boys. They're okay. You'll get a visit scheduled within the week. Please don't try to contact them directly until then. But I couldn't wait. I couldn't breathe. I drove to the foster home. Just parked across the street. I didn't get out. I just sat there and watched the porch light flick on. Through the window, I saw Tyler. He was staring out into the night. I wanted to wave, but I didn't. I was afraid he wouldn't wave back. It happened during our second supervised visit. A plain room at the DHS office with folding chairs, juice boxes, and a clock that ticked too loud. Max sat beside me, quieter than usual, his little fingers curled around a toy car the foster family had given him. Tyler sat across from us, arms folded, eyes on the floor. He hadn't looked me in the eye once. I kept trying. I asked about school, about the food, about the people. I told them the dog missed them. That their sisters were making signs to welcome them home. That the house was quiet without them, like someone had turned the volume of our lives all the way down. Max leaned into me, but Tyler didn't move. I couldn't take it anymore. "Tyler," I said softly, "please. Tell me what happened. Tell me why you left." His jaw tightened. "I need to know. I need to understand." He stayed silent so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, without lifting his head, he muttered, "He told me he was going to send me away." I blinked. "What?" "David," he said. "He said he was done with me. Said I was lazy, disrespectful. Said there was a place where they teach boys to be men. Somewhere in Arizona. Some boot camp place. For discipline." I felt the blood drain from my face. He finally looked at me, his voice flat. He showed me the website. Said it would break me in or break me down. "Tyler, that he would have never." He hit me, he snapped. "Twice. Hard. When you weren't home." Max looked up, eyes wide, but didn't speak. My heart stopped. "Where?" Tyler stood slowly and pulled up his hoodie. There, just under his ribs, were faint purple marks. Older now. Fading. But real. After the second time, I waited until he was asleep. I took the emergency money. Max didn't want me to go alone. Max nodded. He said we'd be back before anyone noticed. Just needed to get away. The room swayed. Or maybe I did. I reached for the table to steady myself. I didn't want to believe it, I whispered. I thought he was just strict. He never raised his hand in front of me. He didn't want you to see, Tyler said. He knew how to hide it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back in time. I wanted to shake my past self until she saw the bruises and the fear in the way Tyler had started locking his door at night. "I'm sorry," I said, tears streaming now. "I am so sorry." Tyler stared at me, eyes full of something between sorrow and disbelief. "I just wanted you to believe me," he said. I reached out, slowly, not to grab, just to offer. He hesitated. Then for the first time in weeks he took my hand. I filed the police report the next morning. I didn't sleep the night before. I sat in the dark motel room, staring at the bruises in my memory, hearing Tyler's voice echo through every silence. He hit me. He showed me the website. I kept thinking about the night I found David sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a bourbon in his hand. I'd walked in and he quickly closed the screen like he was hiding something. I thought maybe it was porn. I wish it had been. Instead, I know now what he was reading, testimonials from other parents. Places with names like Camp Fowler and Iron Ridge Academy where troubled boys were taught respect through fear, exhaustion, isolation. Legalized cruelty. Some parents called it life-saving. Others never heard from their children again. When I gave the police my statement, I felt like I was writing a eulogy. For my marriage. For my own blind hope. David was arrested within the week, not for child abuse, not directly. It started with an old warrant for unpaid fines, then snowballed when the bruises in Tyler's statement were documented. He denied everything, of course. Called Tyler a liar. Said I was hysterical. But the quiet, haunted look on Max's face, the way he clung to my arm during the interview, that said more than words ever could. The night I told the other kids, I waited until everyone was eating dinner. I turned off the TV. I looked them each in the eye. "David's not coming back," I said. "Because he hurt your brother. And we don't protect people who hurt us, not even if we love them. Especially not then." There were tears. Confusion. My oldest daughter, Emily, wouldn't speak to me for 2 days. She liked David. He brought order to the house. Made charts. Rules. Held everyone accountable. But order can hide rot. It took 6 more weeks for the boys to come home. CPS had to close their case. We had to install new locks, prove we were stable, attend therapy. Every step was a test. I didn't blame them for giving, but every day without my boys was a fresh cut. When the reunification finally happened, Max ran into my arms like he'd been holding his breath for months. He didn't let go for 10 full minutes. Tyler was different. He walked in slowly, looked around like he was seeing our home through a stranger's eyes. He didn't cry. He didn't hug me. But he said, "I want my room painted." "Any color," I said. He chose green. I let him paint the walls himself, even though he got streaks on the ceiling and his music rattled the windows. Max still flinches when doors slam. He has night terrors. Once during a windstorm, he crawled into bed with me and whispered, "Don't make me go." Tyler barely speaks to me some days. But when I asked if he wanted to keep seeing the therapist, he said yes. And when I told him I loved him, even if he didn't believe it, he nodded just once. I started checking their room 3 times a night. I double-check the locks. I keep an emergency bag by the door. I'm not sure if it's for them or for me. The hardest part isn't the loneliness or the guilt, though those live in me now like second lungs. No, the hardest part is learning to sit with the truth. I didn't protect them. I saw the warning signs and chose comfort. I chose the illusion of order. I chose a man over my son's voice. I will never forgive myself for that. But I will fight. Every damn day. I will fight to rebuild what I broke. I will fight for their trust. For their safety. For the fragile sense of peace we're trying to grow day by trembling day. Because love isn't a feeling. It's not warm cocoa and bedtime stories. It's not enough to mean well. Love is action. Love is showing up again and again and again, even when you're the reason they stopped believing in the first place. It's painting over old walls, one shaky brushstroke at a time.